Good morning, everyone. I hope you can see this one all right. Um, it's a great pleasure to be here for the webinar number 4 of this free webinar series that Reinvention Revolution is promoting. We have, over the last couple of weeks, given you a little bit of what it is that the revolution is about. It is to do a lot with understanding the world around you and grasping the technology, but it's also about having clarity on the steps that you need to take if you really want to reinvent yourself, right? One of the things that I tell my customers all the time is this is a lot of hard work, so it's also about understanding where you need to focus your energy in order to succeed. Um, Over the last couple of weeks, I've been getting a lot of questions about, so what was the reinvention, your reinvention, right? What happened there? And I think I'll take just a couple of minutes going into this because I think it, it's an interesting story, but also it has to do with why I think this is so important. When last year when I decided, okay, I need to do something else. I loved my job. It was something that was really good, but I felt that it was time for me to try something else. I started exploring very much what I like to do, right? So, what are the things that I like to spend my time on? And on that, it became very clear to me that inspiring people is something that I love to do. Helping people grow, it's something that I like to do. I like to spend my time building models and trying to simplify concepts to people. I like storytelling. So these are some of the passions that I have. And they started converging into this place where I felt, okay, how can I use that and then make a living out of it, right? Obviously, and yesterday I was talking to an executive in one of the companies I'm on the board, and she mentioned something that it got me thinking. She said, "Well, it's good that you did not pull the plug and then jumped into the water and you built a plan, right?" And I think building that plan is what has given me kind of the necessary peace of mind to go through this process, right? And having this kind of presented to the world in the way that I wanted. I think my first Instagram posting for Reinvention Revolution was if it's not if you're afraid to post or something, you're doing the right thing, or if the product is ready, you shipped it too late, right? So it's also this process of doing something, testing things out. I think my homepage now is in its third iteration. It doesn't look as nice as the as no fourth iteration actually. Doesn't look as nice as the third, but it's capturing more leads. So um, I think it's also that process of trying these things out, right? And I think the success has to do with kind of one step at a time every day, making sure that you're today a better version of you yesterday, right? And also that's what I would like to start today with, because I feel that there is a lot of people out there who are interested. I'm getting a lot of questions from many of you saying, hey, but how do I give the first step, right? How do I start? And it's really about giving that step to, okay, I need to sit down and start kind of drafting what I want this to be. So, one of the things that I intend to do between now and the next webinar is also to share a few resources with you. And that's essentially in order for us to have kind of a continuum. And then while it's time for reflection from all of you, that you have tools to kind of go by, right? The whole idea for this is reinvention has to be your unfair advantage, right? What is this about? what is the unfair advantage? If you master something and the rest of the world is not mastering it, and there is a value to that, then it becomes your unfair advantage, right? I've heard over a lot of time that my unfair advantage was how I cared for people, how I would help people in many circumstances, and I think it's true. It's something that I like to do. But one of the things that over my entire life I've noticed that I am actually mastering is the process of reinventing myself. So starting from a water boy, becoming, a clerk that was typing all the time, to getting into a technology position that I had no idea about, right? It feels almost a repeat of that. I had no idea how to do, but did it anyways. And I had to go through the process of forgetting some things, unlearning, learning other things, and then reprioritizing time differently, to working in sales, which I think, sales is that one thing that should be taught in school, and it's not. I had the privilege of learning that early in my life, then having many different positions, but all the time kind of learning something, doing something else, learning something, doing something else, and building a trajectory that I was personally helped with and fulfilled, right? So now it's about that continuum, and making your invention your unfair advantage, right? So how do you set aside from the rest of the pack? How do you build something that you're proud of? How do you ensure that you have the tools and the means to get moving one step at a time? How do you sell what you want to do, right? And today we're going to talk a lot about that last part that I mentioned, because there's nothing worse than having something and not knowing what to do with it, right? It's easier if you're doing it, you know what to do with it, and then people are not buying, because then obviously you go around, you tweak a few things, and then you change, aka my website, aka the sales funnels, aka a lot of other things, right? You hire different people in different tools. Doesn't matter. But if you don't know what to do with it, then all it generates is anxiety, right? So what we're going to talk today about is that, right? How do you get your passion to be something that you can connect with the needs of the niche that you've identified, and at the same time you're able to commercialize it, right? To focus on it. We're not going to go very deep into the selling process, but I do want to talk to you about that connection, right? So what do you need to do? It sounds a lot more complex than what it really is. And the way I like to put it is, if you really want to get a feel for this, right, you have to remember that there are three elements to it. So I call it the golden triangle, right? Because if you understand the three of them, and we'll talk about it more in detail. So if you understand what's your passion, right? You've been through the process of identifying that and understanding what it is that you're really good at. You have to be so good that it hurts you if you're not doing it, right? So the minute you don't have the ability to do it, it hurts you. You're doing the world a disservice, right? Then the next thing is the niche, right? And I talked about the niche, the sub niche, and the steps. So in the webinar number 3, we talked about how do you go about that. I try to simplify that as much as possible. The reality here is you need to be able to build an avatar, and that avatar we will use today. So when you build that avatar, you're essentially defining what's your message, who are you talking to, how do you talk to that person, what are some of the elements that will make them tick, and what are some of the elements that will not make them tick. And then the last thing is the needs, right? Because every avatar will have needs, and we will talk about those needs today, and then we will try and make a case for how do you bridge that, right? In the end of the day, that triangle is where fulfillment is where success is, and is where the money is, right? Because if you understand all those elements, it becomes easier for you to say, you know what, this is something I can do. And even though I need to build, I need to scale it, I will do that because my passions are driving me, right? Or because I understand how good I can be when doing something like that. So it's critical that you get a feel for that passion, that niche, but it will be useless if you do not understand your customer, your avatar, right? And yeah, I've done marketing for a while in my life, right? And I used to joke that marketing is whatever it is that the marketing people think that marketing is at that time, because it evolves so quickly, right? But the reality is that marketing is about defining a market, the niche, and it's about defining what does that market needs, right? And then kind of putting that message over into that, right? So the mindset is built by the passion, okay? The marketing connects that mindset with something tangible that can be worked on. But you're only going to get momentum if your message is resounding somewhere, right? If it's working in a place where, okay, I like that. And I've seen so many examples of people over the last year, right, who have been able to take this whole thing to the next level. I've been studying with some people who I didn't know a year ago, and they are amazing on these three elements, right? How do you get your mindset to be in the right place? How do you get your marketing to be top notch, unfallible? And then how do you get your momentum to be exponentialized, right? And by pushing that agenda, you're able to get to the next level. So this golden triangle, very important concept that you need to get. But I think we're all here to talk about the needs, right? And some of the people who's worked with me for the last 15 years have heard me say this one way or another, right? There is a Japanese PhD called Dr. Kano. 40 years ago, he studied customer needs and how much they were implemented, and he came up with a model, right? And I find it amazing that that model has not become more commercialized, and it has not become more visible to everyone. And I'm impressed that in many places that you go and you talk about marketing, that model is not kind of the starting point for the conversation. Because when we talk about customer needs, right, we're not talking about customer wants. We're not talking about, customer delighters. We're talking about the stuff that that customer needs to move his needle, right? His thing. So what is it that you need to move your customer's needle? How do you help him? And it's not about selling something that that customer doesn't need, right? And it becomes very tricky because many people want a lot of things, but what they need is different, right? And sometimes they communicate a lot about what they want, but they don't talk about what it is that they need. Because the issue with the needs is that it's understood by that customer that it's so basic that it's not worthwhile spending time on. So if you don't capture that element, it's very difficult to actually fulfill your customer needs. Now, and when you do, your customer needs will not impress anyone, right? Because obviously it's there, it should be there, right? What does impress people is when you delight them. But you can only get to delighting people when you've done the needs, right? And that's one of the things that I joke, in many sports, personal trainers, veterinarians, psychologists, people forget about that, right? And you're trying to delight someone with bells and whistles, but the reality is that basic needs for what the customers came to you are not being met, right? So with my customers, that's why I spend so much time in conversational mode, because many times what they need is not being communicated, right? Many times what they need is, it's below the surface, right? So how do you serve your customers if you don't know what they want to eat, right? And that is what takes me to the next thing, right? Do you go into a restaurant and then will your waiter say, I know what you want to eat? The reality is that unless you're a regular like me, right? I like to go to restaurants, and when I like something, I'll stick to that. Last night, I made a mistake of not doing it, and then it was a total disappointment. So usually, I like the restaurant because the food is good, and when it's the right food, I'll stick to it, right? So there are many places. If I'm a regular, the waiters will know, or I will tell them, you know what, I already know what I want. But if you walk into a place and it's your first time there, right? The waiter is very unlikely to say, you want pasta, or you want pizza, or you want that steak, right? He will ask you. And then in many cases, people will say, hey, but what do you recommend, right? And that's different, because then the waiter will be kind of putting something that has been told, okay, today's special is cabbage because we have a ton of cabbage on the back, so we need to get it out. Or it's steaks because you know what, the aged steaks are going to start rotting in there if we don't do something about it. But it's conversation. He's not going to be trying to guess, right? If you ask him, he's going to push something your way, but it's conversational, right? And the best waiters, they will sell you because they're able, with a couple of questions, to understand what it is that you're looking for, right? So what is it that you need to do? I think the first part of understanding your avatar's needs is to ask better questions, right? The quality of the questions you ask your customers will redefine how much you understand their needs. Okay. I don't know if you can see here, but I have marked, right, my avatar. So my avatar, the avatar in Reinvention Revolution, is 55 years old, right? His name's Jacob. He's an executive. He's been wanting to start a business for years now, but he doesn't know where to start. He's good in finance, but he could really use some help on how to sell his services. Plus, he's not really sure what exactly his business will be about. He's working full time, has an MBA, and does not consider taking another degree online. So he's usually studying up on how he can start his business, considering anything online. Jacob lives with his boyfriend. They both want to travel more, hates their job, and don't make enough money, right? So when I designed that avatar, I had to ask a lot of questions, right? And those questions are not questions directed at the what. The questions that we need to think when we are talking about our avatar, but also talking to our customers, is what it means for them. So my avatar is 55. What does that mean for them? Oh, it means that they exercise every day and they feel young, even though they should be feeling a little bit older. Oh, right. So that's not anywhere in here, but by asking the meaning of that, you're able to start collecting more information that will help you define, okay, so what are the needs? Okay. When you ask better questions and you go for the meaning that those points have for the customer, it becomes easier to understand, okay, these are some of the needs that we're unveiling, right? I like to say it's like peeling an onion. You just go step by step and you're opening it up and you're basically seeing like a different shape of an onion for every one you peel, right? So asking better questions is extremely important, right? I cannot emphasize how much, because sometimes we're in this mode that we want to sell something, but we're not willing to go through the work of lending exactly what it is that that customer wants, right? And what I like to say is that usually there is a ratio of when you're in a sales call, right? And I've done sales calls of 5 minutes, okay? And you can close a sale in 5 minutes, but then you have to be extremely sharp, because the issue with the sales call is what is the listen to talk ratio that you have, right? And the best listen to talk ratio is listen 60 to 70% of the time and talk 30% of the time, right? And we do the opposite, right? We want to spit it out. We want to go about what it is that we can do, right? The reality is, okay, ask the questions. So how do you get yourself in a position where you know exactly what the information that you're getting means for your customer, right? So as you will see in my avatar, I marked some stuff in yellow, I marked some stuff in green, and I marked some stuff in red. And why did I do that? Right? Because there will be elements that will jump, right? So for example, he's not really sure what exactly his business will be about. So if he needs to have certainty in his life and he doesn't know what exactly his business will be about, he will hardly ever have the energy to make the jump. Okay, because he needs that certainty, and not knowing becomes critical for his action of, you know what, I'll do this, I'll go about, exercising that muscle of trying. He's good in finance, so could it be that something in there will help some other part in here, right? So there's a good thing, so he's excited about it, he's really good at it, right? Let's assume that he's a CFO, right? And he knows a lot about investment, right? Could he use that knowledge in some other way, right? So that dichotomy helps you understand as well, okay, so in every single element, in every single question that we have, there will be a meaning for the customer, but there will also be a meaning for us, right? Is that going to help us? Is that going to make it easier for us to craft something for that particular customer? So that's very important, because if you want to succeed in your reinvention, right, you need to be able to say, okay, I will do something that I'm passionate about. I will do that in a niche that I've captured. I understand the population. I know the market. I know what it is. I know what it's not. And I know my customer, right? And then I'm able to commercialize, right? I'm able to get that element of monetizing what I'm doing the right way. All right. So asking better questions, building the meaning of it is extremely critical. Okay. Now, when you got to that point, right? When you got to, okay, I know I need to put meaning, I need to put meaning for my customers, then so how do I land all this, right? So I have all these passions. I have the niche. I understand the needs. So how do I go about that? And that's a process that when you get to that point, it's usually very easy for you to go to the next level, right? The next level is, okay, I'm going to set something up here, right? We live in a world. I was doing a seminar with Howard Schultz, and CEO of Starbucks, right? Incredible story. They went from 11 coffee shops in 1987 to more than 20,000 globally today, right? Breaking into the Chinese market, which by the way is incredible because China, they drink a lot of tea. So all those things make him one of the CEOs that I look at and I admire, right? Also because of his trajectory. He's well educated and that's fantastic, but he's also taken interest on helping people along the process, right? And one of the things that he says is that technology today is eliminating barriers for you to start businesses, right? I can start a business from my living room, right? At the back of this thing, that there's a living room. So it's incredible that you can identify your passion, get hold of a niche, understand the needs, and build something that you can monetize on, right? And that can fulfill you, that can make you happy and excited about, giving time for that. Most of us think that we would love to retire at 8:35, right? But the reality is that the minute we do, we want to go do something else, and that has to do with how I allocate my time towards my passions and so on, right? So this process that I'm describing is a circular process. So what's going to happen is you're going to go and pick, the best combination of passions, niches, and need. You're going to build that triangle, and that's going to be the core of whatever it is that you're going to do. So I would love to start a consulting business on oil and gas, right? I mean, if it was for me, I don't know anything about oil and gas, right? But if that is a place where you have the knowledge, you understand the value that you can bring, you understand the size of that, right? And if you want to go even deeper into it, so it's not oil and gas, but it's upstream and it's where greenfield projects and so on. So the niche, and that niche has a value that can be tapped into, right? And if you're watching, you know who I'm talking to because this is a real example, right? We went through that process in the oil and gas industry and amazingly successful venture in a couple of months because it was very well determined, right? But that process was circular, right? Because we were going through it, and then when we land the triangle, then you're ready to go to the next level. It does not mean that you're going to stop looking at those needs and the niches and the passion because some of that may have to be adjusted as you go, right? In process management, we call it the PDSA, the plan, do, study, and act, right? When you're able to kind of put all that together, you're essentially driving something, but you're not forgetting to do what the homework of clearing it up. But when you do it right, and when you understand those three, and there is a match, magic happens, right? I can tell you that much, and I see that in me, right? This project was meant to be something that I would do whenever a few years ago, and then I got the opportunity. I started putting things down. I started understanding, okay, what is all this? No, what is my golden triangle? Where do I operate? What are some of the things that I want to do? And it's been incredible, right? It's been great so far. I get most joy from the conversations I have with my customers in this because it is something that ignites my inner passion, right? When I see a smile on my customer's face, they got this amazing aha moment. Oh my God, I know what to do now. Boom, right? Last week, I had a customer, she was like, oh my God, I need to write this down right now. Yes, because then you got to the right point, right? You were there to make it work, all right? So when you do this whole exercise, right, and when you tap into the passions, the niche, the needs, you've understood the meaningful questions, you've improved the quality of your questions, so you were able to separate, you know what, I'm gonna when I do this, I'm going to be assessing my customer, I'm going to be assessing myself, and I'm going to be assessing the quality of my questions, right? As you exercise those three layers, so I call it the meta, right? When you kind of take a step back and you're going to be looking at yourself, the questions you're asking the customer, you're also going to be improving that part of the process. That's what I mean about the circular mode, right? And then you get to what you really need, okay? You're only going to be able to monetize your avatar, okay, if his heart goes up to his head. What does that mean, right? It's very simple. And for the business to business people, I got that question. I get this question a lot, right? Oh no, but purchases, they're not emotional, right? You have spreadsheets and yeah. Good luck with that, right? Spreadsheets, they're meant for you to reduce your cost, your price, right? That's about it, right? If you're able to provide value and you're able to communicate that value in the process, the customer will buy you, right? But the only way you're gonna be able to communicate that value in the process is to make sure that your customer's heart get up to their head. This is very important, right? Because you're connecting the subjective and the objective. You're connecting the emotional and the practical, right? You're driving a conversation that is meaningful for that customer, right? And guess what? If he's afraid that something happens in some part of his business that you can help him with, and your value surpasses the value of everyone else around you, and you're able to communicate, he's going to buy from you. There's no doubt about that, right? And it's that ability to, okay, I'm going to trigger a different conversation here. I'm going to go deeper into their needs, and I'm going to come up with solutions that are able to lift them up, right? Hey, I want to work in the health and wellness industry. I don't know how to start. Okay, so let's go deep into it, right? That's your niche. Do you understand about it? Do you need to study about it? Yeah, I would like to take 17 courses about it. Okay, that's great. But when are you going to put those 17 courses to use, right? Because the only way you're going to understand how you can make a business out of something is when you're able to lift your customers' hearts into their heads. Okay, you have to turn that process on. You have to swipe it up and make sure that the customer is listening to you not only attentively, right? But they're screaming about your solution. They're happy with what they're getting. All right. And if you have that, they're gonna come in hordes, right? They will be there and they will be asking for more and they will be wanting to talk more. That's just the way it is. All right. So very, very important. You have to turn your customers' hearts, put them into their brains, and make sure that they both connect, right? You can only do that if you understand and you're crafting something for their needs. Be it, I want to be a TV star. I want to open an oil and gas consultancy. I want to go and write a book. I want to go and have a wellness clinic, right? I want to go and be a speaker of the house in my country. So how do I do that, right? But I want to be one of the good guys, right? So how I want to be a screenwriter. That is actually a good one. I want to be a musician. I'm 50, but I would like to record something. I'm good at playing, but I don't know what to do with it, right? So the minute you lift that, you ignite, right? And they'll buy from you. And the minute they buy from you, they understand, okay, this is adding value for me, and you understand this is adding value for me as well, right? The minute you're able to make that interaction, it's going to be wonderful, because then you're going to have customers coming to you, right? And I can tell you, uh, in my life, I've closed enormous contracts, right? And I've done many things professionally that I'm super proud of, right? Help people grow and get bigger roles and close amazing contracts. Have traveled the world, to do super high ticket sales, 30, 40, $50 million in contracts. Amazing. Nothing beats professionally getting my first contract in Reinvention Revolution. That pleasure is an amazing energy, right? Because that's the validation that, okay, wow, I got someone's heart into their brain and they're now coming over. And it's amazing when they tell you, hey, I would really not like to talk to you. I would really like to, you know what? I have this idea that I would like to touch base with you, right? So we do a lot of this back and forth. Hey, what do you think about this? Do you like the logo? Do you like the business plan? Do you like the so it's amazing. And that feeling is only there if and when I'm able to get a customer's hearts into their brain, right? So that's very powerful. That's a huge lesson for me, and I hope it's a good lesson for you as well. But now, so what about the rest, right? And here I'm gonna talk a little bit about something which is in line with our next project, but I wanted to kind of end today, kind of giving you something to think about and work on over the next couple of weeks, right? Um, the biggest deterrent for someone starting to go out and executing on their dreams is I don't have the resources, right? Sometimes you have, you have your own company and you need something and you don't even need to know how to get, right? I have a corporate customer whom we are right now discussing the usage of tools to help them optimize the work, right? And the reality is that some of those tools, they're actually a lot of value for money, right? If you may get, so original website, this logo, well, all this comes from Fiverr, right? Why? Because I'm not a designer, because I am not a web designer. Actually, I'm being impressed by how much I've learned now in the context of selling things online. But the reality is that there is a lot more to it, right? So yes, I may do this, a few landing pages here and there, but the reality is I would definitely hire someone and say, hey, do this for me, and that's essentially it, right? So the reason why I'm saying this, it's because the deterrent is I don't know where to go, right? So I'm putting one of the tools here that I used, that I see a lot of people use, right? And that's Fiverr. What Fiverr does is it allows you to hire people online. You pay. There are different tiers of businesses, right? So, for example, the one I like the most is Zapier, right? Zapier automates everything that I use Zapier a lot. So when you register for this, your name gets put on a list, and then that list gets shifted to my email marketing campaign, and then automatically there is an email that gets shut down to you. My sales prospects, they get when we reach a certain stage in our deals, they're gonna get an NDA, they're gonna get all that automatically, right? And I think that's amazing, because what that does is that gives me the ability to think about how to inspire and not, okay, I need to look at the books, right? And by the way, I have an accountant. I love to look at numbers if they're kind of towards the bigger goal, but the smaller numbers I'm not very good at. For anyone who's worked with me before, I get distracted very easily. So if it's big and it's going to create an impact, I'll be looking at trends and so on. But for all the rest, I need someone making sure that those numbers are correct and they're in line with the reality that I need and that I want. So I have an accountant, right? And yes, she works for me part time, right? I pay her a fee. She looks at my numbers. We have a monthly conversation. She does my taxes. That's it, right? Nothing else. Actually, I have three accountants. I have one here, one in Brazil, and one in the U.S. because different tax systems, different things happening. But I don't worry about that, right? I do, but they worry for me, and then I would worry about the bigger tickets that we have, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna when we are done with this, I'm gonna send you like a link to Fiverr so that you can take a look into it, see how it works for you, if there's anything in there that works for you. I think there is. Even if you have a small business that you want to do something different with it, Fiverr is usually a good solution because it gives you spend the money in that one thing and that's it. And then you go about really creating the concept of this golden triangle that's going to help you really excel and get your customers' hearts to their minds, right? So before we close, I just want to go through what's next. January is coming very quickly, and we're going to start promoting a bunch of things. So the first one is the webinars, which we're doing. We're going to have the last one in January. So part of the 5-stage approach, what I want you to do is, if you're watching this now, between now and January 4th, 2020, you can send me your ideas over an email. I'll leave my email towards in the very end, in case you want to talk. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you craft those ideas in something that is possible to commercialize, right? I'm getting a lot of contact, but I still have the bandwidth to help you, and that also helps me understand a little bit more. So, what are some of the next things that my customers will need, right? The next thing is the mentoring. I'm doing a lot of mentoring now. We're gonna open cohort C in early next year as well, early 2020. And it's essentially about unlocking secrets, right? So all the things that we talk about in the webinar, we go a lot deeper, and then we say, okay, these are some of the secrets of the people who have made it work, right? And these are some of the tools and resources that we can use. And then the last thing is the mastermind, right? We will put the masterminds out also early next year, and that's essentially so that we can have a group of people who's able to do this together and get to the next level together. Having that network is extremely helpful if you are reinventing yourself. All right. So I want to thank you very much for being with us here over this last 4 webinars. I'm putting everything on YouTube. I'm sharing with you a few resources for you to work on the next couple of weeks. And then you have something to think about and reflect, kind of lay down the groundwork for what it is that you want to do. And then the last thing is I'm going to share you a resource for you to go out and hire some people in case there's something that you know you need to do, but you don't know how. Okay? Thank you very much for watching. It's a pleasure. It's also a pleasure to get all the questions that I'm getting now. My responsiveness is improving as well. So shoot them out. And I hope to see you in webinar number 5, 2 weeks from now, where we're going to go down to the dirty details of kind of putting everything that we captured over the last couple of weeks and then merging that into a business plan, something that you can say, okay, this is something I'm super proud of. I can go out and launch this tomorrow. All right. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful Christmas and a wonderful New Year. All right. Cheers. Bye.